With Apple, Samsung, and OnePlus releasing strong phones this year, is the Google Pixel 7 the one for you? Let's find out. This is the Google Pixel 7 review. The Pixel 7 has been a pretty solid device. I've used the 6 and I've had issues with it. I do have some issues with the 7. Not very big issues, but we'll get to that later in the video. Let's talk a little bit about this phone though. We have a 6.7 inch OLED display with 3120 by 1440 pixels, which is 513 pixels per inch for those who are keeping count. It has a refresh rate up to 120 Hz, and the outer glass is made of Corning Gorilla Glass Victus. It's a beautiful display, and it's made by Samsung, who you might know has the best displays on the market currently. Just like the Pixel 6 Pro, we have a curved glass on the sides, similar to the Note and Ultra series. It makes holding the phone less secure, and the sides feel pretty thin. One thing about the display that annoys me is the fact that the phone, when you hit it, it feels pretty hollow. Now that's because the phone, the back of the display is not glued to the rest of the components. This makes it easier to repair the device. But because of that, when you hit it, you hear this hollow sound. So imagine every day when you're using it, you're typing, that's all you hear. I think most people get used to that pretty quickly, but after using Samsung for so many years, I'm not a fan of it. Now here's a Samsung phone doing the same thing. It feels pretty solid inside, and you don't hear that hollowness when you're typing. I mean, it's being nitpicky, but for people who've never used the Pixel 6 or 7 before, it's something to get used to. The design of the phone. The Pixel 7 is a big phone, just like its predecessor, the Pixel 6 Pro. The phone weighs about 212 grams. The device is 6.41 inches by 3.02 inches by 0.35 inches, which is basically in Galaxy Note Ultra territory. And the phone is also IP68 for water and dust resistance. Once again, we have Google's own Tensor G2 chip powering the device and 12 gigabytes of RAM with your choice of 128 gigabytes, 256 gigabytes, or 512 gigabytes of storage. You also need to decide between Obsidian, Snow, or Hazel in terms of your color. I went with the Hazel colorway because I think it's the most unique colorway, and I think it looks really cool. And if you have cases, that gold is going to show. This gold accent is going to show through the case. If you get a clear one, like I did, you're going to be able to see the whole thing like this. Now this thing is running Google's G2 Tensor chip. You know it's going to be better than the first one. It runs smoothly, but it's fair to say that most flagships these days can run anything that Android can throw at it. No frame rate drops. I'm not getting any of that. Powering this device is a 5,000 milliamp battery. It's capable of fast charging, wireless charging, and reverse wireless charging. Wireless charging. I did have an issue with wireless charging in my trip in Japan. I carry this Anker 5,000 milliamp wireless charger, and I'll show you. So here's the phone. Press the button. The lights turn on. I got power on it. Put it in here. It doesn't do anything. What I found out after doing research is the Pixel 7 and this Pixel 7 Pro will require Qi EPP chargers. My Belkin charger works, my wireless Belkin charger works, but my small Anker does not work. So when you're buying accessories, make sure that they're compatible with the Pixel 7 Pro. I'm surprised they're not all compatible. I don't know why this wouldn't be compatible, but I guess it varies. Battery life's been pretty good. Like I mentioned, I took this phone to a trip to Japan and I've been out all day and I'm getting around 4 hours of screen on time. But I just want to mention that that's like in a 24-hour time span. I'm not at a charger all day. I'm not on my phone all day, but I do use maps a lot to get around. So 4 hours of screen on time within 24 hours. And then I got to charge after a whole day of use. I'm not back in the room to charge at all in between. So on a normal day, if I was lounging around with my phone, I'm probably getting 6 to 7 hours screen on time. Now, it's safe to say that most people who buy Google Pixels know that what they're getting. And what they're getting is probably the best stills camera still up to this date. I didn't mean that pun, but yeah. On the back, we have a triple camera setup. The main 50 megapixel camera has a 25mm focal length at f1.9. What that means is it's going to gather a lot of light. It's going to be good in low light as well. The second camera is a 48 megapixel telephoto lens. The last camera on the back is a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens. On the front, we have a 10.8 megapixel selfie camera, and our video options on this camera are 4K UHD at 60 frames per second, full HD at 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second. All the other options are there too. I've always regarded the Pixel camera to be the best stills camera, and I still feel that way after using this phone. Something to note, it's not a big deal, but there is a difference in the quality of the lenses. If you're looking at the screen and you're changing between lenses while zooming, you're going to notice a difference at sometimes. Sometimes I find myself zooming in just to use a different lens where the quality becomes better. It's probably not an easy process to make all the quality of all the lenses in the phone match, but maybe they'll get there in the future. But it's something to note. Some other issues I've noticed when I first got the phone and I was setting up at the very beginning screen where you set up all your settings, I could not get the keyboard to come up. Like I had to type, there was a prompt, I had to type in something and the keyboard would not come up until I restarted it. Just one thing. That's the only time I've ever had that issue, and I probably won't ever have it again, but it's something that happened. There's maybe been 2 times where the gestures were not working or they're a little finicky, but overall experience is very good. I'm getting all the updates. The phone's blazing fast. I have no issues in performance-wise, but that's 2 things that happen, and it probably won't ever happen again also. And I've had this phone for a while, so 2 instances like that out of the many months I've had this phone, I wouldn't even consider it a big deal at all. So in the end, is this a solid device that I would recommend to you? Yes. Is this the phone you should pick? Well, there's a few things you need to decide. Whether the software is something that you like. I'm not really a fan of where you swipe once and it determines where you're going to go next. I'm not a fan of swiping up and holding it to see all the running apps. It's an extra step, and I feel like even though it's pretty simple, I prefer Samsung's way of opening stuff. For Samsung, you can swipe all 3 swipes from the bottom, but it depends on where you swipe. Like if you swipe in the middle, it'll go home. If you swipe on the left, it'll go back. If you swipe on the right, it'll show all the apps. So if I need to do one of those 3 things specifically, I can just go straight to it. Google's implementation, where you gotta swipe up and hold it to get all the apps, I don't really like. So that's just a preference. So that's something, if you're gonna go with Pixel and you want Android, that's something to consider between that and the other skinned versions of Android. Otherwise, great phone. I love this phone. The only thing I don't really love is the size. I think it's a little too big, and it doesn't help that the rails are so thin, so it makes it even harder to hold. It kind of stabs your hand a little. Not that dramatic, and like I mentioned earlier, the hollowness of the phone, and some software stuff. You know, I choose Android because I like software customizations, and I know the Pixel is pretty light, and people would complain about Samsung's having too much, but they're at a good balance now. And now I just wish the Pixel had some of that, just a little bit more of that. But otherwise, the Pixel is such a great phone. It runs fast. If you don't need a lot of customization, like like iPhone users, if you don't need a lot, this is a good fit for you. You know, it runs smooth, no stutters, nothing at all, no problems. Excellent phone. This is it. Okay, take it easy.